I definitely feel like I have found that niche. And, again, I think when there are those moments of like, what is it that you're doing? And I'm like, I am not doing anything. You are experiencing it is not a taste. You're experiencing an emotion, being connected to the food. I am literally a vessel that is providing it for you.
Hi, I'm Laine, and welcome to Laine's Domain, where we deconstruct the game of life, one player at a time. Americans are facing a crisis today of epic proportions, both literally and figuratively, with almost half the population classified as obese. 6 out of 10 have chronic disease, and 2/3 of Americans are on prescription drugs. More than 37 million have diabetes, and 96 million have pre-diabetes. This dire situation is due to unhealthy living, but more specifically, a result of the degradation of food quality, driven by a food system that prioritizes profit, shelf life, and efficiency over nutrition and safety, relying on industrial farming, chemical-heavy practices, and the dominance of processed foods. But there are movements starting up all over the country by concerned citizens, back to land movements, back to the future of food. And it's our honor and privilege to introduce one such mover and shaker today as our special guest player. Since 2011, Amanda Callahan, founder of Callywood Farms, has been at the forefront of building resilient local food systems, raising organic meat and produce, and creating rewarding alliances between families and farmers. Amanda's work embodies the belief that when we invest in clean, organic, locally grown food, we invest in healthier, stronger, more robust citizens and communities. So please join me in welcoming Amanda Callahan. Welcome, Amanda.
I'm so excited to be here and talk about one of my favorite topics ever. So it's a pleasure.
Oh my gosh, fantastic. Well, then why don't you share with us how you first got interested in food and healthy eating?
Oh goodness. It's kind of a long, weird roundabout way.
Good, good.
I think I grew up, my father, he grew up as kind of a line cook and touring the Southeast, learning, keeping a living by cooking. And he always brought that to our home. He was the cook of our family. And so I grew up kind of, at his feet and watching him. And I, at a very early age, decided that I was going to be a vegetarian. And I think I did it as an act of rebellion of like, heck, you can't feed me now. But as I assumed that identity, a 13-year-old young female is testing out those identities. And so I felt like I had to back that up, and so I started to research, well, why do people become vegetarians, and what is it that's so important? And I found a lot of really interesting dialogues about the ways that animals are raised for meat production in our country, and so that really became kind of an identity for me. I did start eating meat again, really kind of during a health crisis in college when a nurse said to me, like, have you ever thought about adding animal protein back into your diet? I really think that you would be healthier. And I did, and then I said, wait a second, I believed this for so long about how we're treating animals and raising it for meat consumption. And that really began my journey to becoming an animal farmer, in the quest to not only nourish my body, but to nourish my family's body in the best way that I knew how, which was really to opt out of the systems that were given as consumers in the U.S.
Well, I'm very appreciative of that. So when you were a kid, though, did you participate in cooking meals for your family at all?
So I didn't really grow up cooking. I didn't really find cooking as an individual until college, until I was like, oh, I have to cook for myself. And it was my first kind of house, and I really fell kind of in love with the process of feeding myself, feeding my now husband, but my boyfriend back then. And then I really fell into it my senior year when I was writing my undergraduate thesis. And I used it as a procrastination method. I didn't want to write. And so I would concoct these elaborate dinner parties based off of Rachel Ray and Ina Garten on Food Network, because it was always on our TV in college. Like, yeah, it shows my age, but and I just really fell in love with providing food and cooking it from scratch, and how can I do this better? And I was known for throwing elaborate dinner parties at our house, even in undergrad, and then most certainly when I went to graduate school and later in life. It was like, okay, Amanda's cooking, everybody's coming.
We have that same thing going here now too as well. Amanda's cooking, we're coming. So you grew up with like a palm tree farm and tell me about that.
Yeah, we had, my parents bought 10 beautiful acres. I grew up in South Florida. So this was in North Fort Myers, Florida, and my dad started growing palm trees. And somebody mentioned that it was, a good business to have. And so I grew up running in rows and rows of plants and tree houses and digging in the dirt and freedom on bikes and dirt roads. And my sister and I, were gone until, dusk, doing, I don't even know what we did. But there was a lot of freedom in our childhood and a lot of play. Yeah.
That's very nice to hear, because today, I mean, you don't really see, maybe your kids probably, but you don't really see kids playing outside.
No.
They're on their electronics, right? Doing their thing. So, yeah, I hope that's not a generation that's passed for good. I really do.
Yeah. No, there's some of us out here that are raising kids in the dirt. So
Good. So you had a bit of a rough childhood.
I did. Yes, I did. I grew up, really my childhood, and one of the many hats of identities that I wear is that I am a childhood survivor of addiction. My mother was an alcoholic. Her mother was an alcoholic. Come from a long line and a history of that. And so I didn't really know and understand that until the first time my mother went away to rehab when I think I was in the second grade. I think I was about 7 or 8. And unbeknownst to me, I couldn't see it that young, but she was sick and she went away into a treatment facility. And then that began really a long cycle of her in and out of rehab. And so I grew up in the rooms of AA, and Alateen, and Al-Anon. And so, that really, I had a very tumultuous adolescence as well. As you can imagine, rebelling and trying to fit in and wearing that hat and instability. I was really raised mostly by my father, from then on as a teenage girl. And, yeah, it was, and so my quest to break that cycle and provide a different way of living and being for myself and my future family was for sure an impetus of why I do what I do.
Right. So you then dabbled in drugs and alcohol for a while.
I did. Right? Oh, yes, definitely. I was a 13-year-old who was, finding my own way. And so I think depressed and why can't my mother choose me victim mentality, that I sought attention where I could get it, and that was in a bad crowd, and very early on did a lot of drugs at a very young age. And so I will always remember the night that I got high as a kite and was sitting on a golf cart looking up at the stars with a friend of mine, and I said, I have to stop this. I have to stop this. I need to be different. I don't want to do this anymore.
The night wraps her in a velvet haze. Her life's a maze of endless grace. But she sees a spark in the blackest space, a light that says, take your place. 'Cause the stars don't wait, they burn, they gleam, like they hold the map to her wildest dream. And she whispers back, I can be more.
And I went back home, and that was after my freshman year of high school. I went back home and I really never touched it again. And after failing 2 classes my freshman year of high school, went on to graduate the top 10% of my class, and really became a leader at my school and within myself, a leader that led myself out of that hole I dug myself in, and turned my life around. And so, yeah. After my senior year, my mother was killed in a car accident, and I was 17 and my sister was 15. It was deeply traumatic for both of us, losing our mother so young, and I think really losing her in a place where neither of us had gotten come to a place where we had forgiven each other as mothers and daughters. And I never really got to have the conversation with my mother of like, I forgive you for what my childhood was. And so she died in a place of angst in our relationship. And my sister, especially being so much younger, really took it hard, and thus began her cycle with addiction. Pride is an understatement, but watching her battle her way out of it is probably one of the best moments of my life. But she has just celebrated 11 years of sobriety, and when she decided to get sober, has never picked it up again and continues to live an incredible life full of love and honesty, and it's incredible. So we made it out together. We made it out as individuals and separately, and I think that we're both living a life that we could have never imagined as little girls who were living with a mother, an addict, who never saw another way. So, yeah.
Did you guys have to deal with any violence in your family?
Yeah, there was. I mean, growing up with a mother who was an alcoholic, there was a lot of fighting. Now I understand it. And I think that my mom was at a point where she when they decided to get divorced, she realized that the courts, that she was most likely not going to get custody of us because of her addiction. And I think that both my parents were in this cycle they didn't know how to get out of. And the night that everything changed was my mother walked out with looking beaten up and saying that my father had abused her, and my father was taken away. And we lived with my mother for 6 months, and that 6 months was, I honestly really don't remember much of it. It was a really difficult, hard time in my life. I was 11, 12 years old, and was the sole caretaker of my sister and myself as a 6th grader, while my mother was in full-blown active addiction. And we got out of it. I finally had to call and ask for help from my father. I didn't know how to do that because I thought my dad had beat up my mother. And so my sister and I felt like we had no one or nowhere to go or turn to, or no adults in our life that could help us. And but later in life, we did find out that my mother lied about that night in an attempt to gain custody of us and really gain control over the situation. She was an active addiction, and I don't blame her for that. I mean, can you imagine understanding and knowing that you're going to lose your 2 girls? And my mother, even though she was an addict, was an incredible, joyful mother. She loved us deeply. It was not that she abused us or took us to parties while she got drunk. It was nothing like that. She was, she threw us elaborate birthday parties and loved us the best way she knew how, but her mental stability was marred by this addiction to alcohol.
Yeah, I got it. Well, you and your sister have pulled yourself out of an incredibly difficult situation, and I'm sorry to hear about all of that, but what you two are today are so amazing. You know, sometimes it's like alchemy, right?
Yes.
You go into the fire and you come out a precious gem or stone. So, I mean, but you don't know that when it's going on, right?
You don't know that when it's going on. And and you have no idea what the outcome is going to be, and the hurt and the pain and the suffering. And I don't know how we did it or why we did it, and why some people make it out of the fire and why some people do. But I do know that my sister and I are very close, and we continually show up day in and day out for each other. And we are so lucky later in life to be able to do business together as well. So we work together and get to do some really neat things as 2 girls who didn't know they were going to make it out of the fire. And now we are fully bloomed and moving and shaking and doing some pretty outrageous things in this lifetime. So
let's hear about those outrageous things. What are they?
Well, I in my life, I chose to go to graduate school and become this academic, and I had blips of becoming a chef, but I really chose it to be a hobby, and so I thought I was going to be this change maker in the world. I was studying policy and women's health and violence against women across the world based off of my own experiences and understanding how it comes to happen. And I went to graduate school. I have a master's degree in international human rights, and I was taught a very expensive lesson. My expensive lesson was, graduate school tuition. And my takeaway from graduate school and learning all of these wonderful things in academia was that these issues happen all over the world. And, my favorite thing to say is that, we can study female genital mutilation in Africa and bride burning in India, but the reality is that it happens for the same reason that women are beat in our backyards here in South Carolina. And that is because of systems of inequality and the concept of patriarchy. Mm-hmm. And how dare we go to other countries when we have the same thing happening in our own homes, in our own backyards. And so I chose after graduate school to not go that route and wanted desperately to work in domestic violence in rural areas to provide some outlet for young women. And I became a domestic violence educator and created prevention programming for middle school and high school students to show them and to teach them the warning signs and to give them a way out of like, hey, there is another way of living. And so I did that for 12 years. I was still creating elaborate dinner parties. At this point, my cooking, I had started cooking sourdough and providing some sourdough loaves to people. And I looked at my husband. He's like, what, you're doing too much, Amanda. What are you going to do? And I remember looking at him and saying, BJ, I just want to cook food for people. And he's like, okay. let's figure out a way for you to do that.
Fantastic. So is this after or before you moved to Callywood Farms?
Yeah, so Callywood Farms started at the same time I moved to South Carolina and was the domestic violence educator. We started a farm at the same time, very slowly, and that was in 2011. We moved to South Carolina. I had been living in Colorado after graduate school. And Colorado was where I fell in love. We had little backyard chickens and a little orchard and a backyard garden. And BJ and I got a green thumb and just loved it. And we were like, we want more. We want to do more of this. We recognize the importance of eating the food that comes out of our backyard. And we moved to South Carolina and I started working for the local domestic violence shelter. And yeah, that was kind of how all that happened. I'm kind of mixing stuff up. So thank you for pulling me back and getting the time straight. Sorry.
Let me stop you here. How did you meet BJ? Because the love that you two have for each other is so evident.
Yeah. I met him in college. He knew way earlier than I did that we were a thing. And I was like, no. And he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna be a thing. I'm like, no. Wow. Yeah, VJ's a few years older than me, and but we met in college and we finished undergrad, and then he followed me out to Colorado for graduate school, and that was that. Yeah.
So that's where you had your backyard chickens and things like that.
Yep.
So then how did you end up moving to South Carolina? How did that happen?
Yeah. BJ grew up in Atlanta and he grew up coming to Lake Hartwell here in South Carolina. His family owned a lake house. And we visited. We loved it. We loved coming to the lake and being a part of that culture. And when we were living in Colorado, BJ's parents, who lived on Lake Hartwell, bought this piece of property in Westminster, South Carolina, and we made fun of them for it. What are you doing buying land in the middle of nowhere? We made fun of them, and we were like, what are you gonna do with it? And they were like, we don't really know. They planted some apple trees and they dug I'm looking over here, I'm looking at my big pond in my backyard. They dug a pond. There's natural springs on the land, and they said, we don't really know, but like we kind of picture like our grandkids coming here and being a part of it, and we don't really know what we're doing.
Get 'em on the farm, get 'em on the farm. They do great work and they do no harm. Gotta have a place where the grandkids roam. Get the parents too. They can call it home.
And we laughed. I mean, this is still at a point of my life where I thought I was going to be working for the UN and, solving, violence against women in Africa. That was my dream. And so I wanted nothing to do with Westminster, South Carolina. And we came back here. We got married on the lake. We decided that was the only place we could envision ourselves getting married, and we were living in Colorado. We got married on the lake, and when we came back to these mountains, living in the Rocky Mountains, and I came back to the Appalachian Mountains, and my heart sinked, and I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. And I'd never felt that before. And I knew deep, bone deep, I was supposed to be here, that this was the land that was calling me. And so BJ and I started looking after getting married and having our backyard garden, and us kind of looking at each other saying, we could see ourselves potentially kind of doing this. We started looking at land. We saw ourselves in Sylva, North Carolina. We looked in the Ozarks in northern Arkansas. We were kind of looking all over. And meanwhile, this 16 acres sat in Westminster, South Carolina, doing nothing. And we were looking at land values and looking at where we wanted to be. I'll never forget the moment that we were both like, your parents have these 15 acres. Like, could we farm those? I mean, we hadn't even considered it. We were going to buy property somewhere else. And I just, I still remember the conversation. I felt like a little kid who had robbed the candy jar and like had tail between the legs. We came to BJ's parents and we were like, so what are you doing with that property in South Carolina? And they were like, nothing. Why? And we're like, could we farm it? And they were like, whoa. I mean, they hadn't considered it either. And so, yeah.
Oh my gosh. So right around the same time that you in 2011, Cafe Clemson Area Food Exchange started. How did you get involved in that? And explain what that is, if you will.
Yep. So, when I first moved here and I knew I wanted to be part of the food movement, I had spent some time on nonprofit boards in Colorado, working on food justice movements. And so I knew when I moved here, I wanted to immediately get involved in the food systems work. And I served as a year on the board for the Upstate Food Co-op. And while I was working a shift at the Upstate Food Co-op, which is in 6 Mile, South Carolina, this guy walks in and says, hey, I'm looking for people who have extra food. They're like homesteaders, and I've got this new website where you can just like kind of like list your extra food and for sale and like help other families be fed. And I was like, what do you mean listed on the internet? And he's like, it's like an online farmer's market. And so that is how I found out about Cafe. That same year, we started immediately. We knew we loved keeping chickens, so we were vendors at the Foothills Heritage Farmers Market, which is in Seneca, very close to Westminster. And we started selling our eggs, and because we were already sitting there, I started baking some granola and some breads along with our eggs. And then the second or third year we were vendors there, we was our first year of offering free range heritage breed chickens. And so we started, we knew we wanted to provide our family with meat, with really good meat. And so we were like, well, could we grow extra for a couple other families? So we started taking pre-orders for chicken. And then around the same time got our first pigs, and we're offering half shares of pork as well. So, as we grew in size, we also became a part of the Clemson Area Food Exchange, the cafe. And that is such a neat, it is a lifesaver for rural farmers in our area. It is such an incredible concept that was found in other rural areas, and we've replicated it here, but it is a online farmers market where you can shop from your phone all weekend long, and you get to shop from over 50 farms that are committed to pesticide, organic. They're not necessarily certified, but committed to rigid growing standard practices. And you list your products, and all the farmers come. I'm prepping my orders as soon as we get off the phone. On Tuesday, we go deliver it to one central location, and then about 10 different volunteers pack the orders for their customers and disperse it to 10 different pickup locations across a 4-county area. It is incredible. We would not have the customer base that we have without that as a resource. So it's really a revolutionary thing for rural farmers.
Oh, I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Because I want to support rural farmers, because rural farmers are they're being put out of business by the big corporations. And, if we don't support them, we lose, and we end up eating pesticide-laden plastic food. And it's just, that's what's causing these things that I described before, the illness in this country. And what's really amazes me is that so many things that are used in foods in America are banned in Europe. They are banned. If there's even the slightest chance that they could be harmful, they don't need proof, the slightest chance, and they're banned. But here it's just like, bring it on, you know? So to help these farmers stay in business and to, you know, support them and have that one-on-one relationship with them. So there's this other thing that is so amazing that you do that bring the farmers directly to the people, and that is your farm to table dinners.
You know, it is so wild the way that life works. So I foreshadowed I get to do business with my sister. So let me take a step back and then I'll get to the farm dinners.
Yes.
My sister got sober by one of the ways that she stayed sober was she found yoga. And she became a very inspirational yoga teacher in her community in Charleston, South Carolina, and got quite a following. And people were like, we want more, and can you do retreats? And so she started doing these retreats, and she kind of got into a place where she was like, I want to host these retreats, but I want to do it on my own terms. She's like, if I book a big house, the first one we ever did together was in Lake Lure, North Carolina. Could you like come be a chef? And this was when I had a career doing something else, and I was like, chef for you? She's like, yeah, just like cook us meals. She's like, you're the best cook I know. Why don't you just come do this for me? And I was like, I guess I fine. It's like what I do for my family. Like, sure, I'll come along. And that was one of the first moments I was like, I think I might be able to make a living doing this. And so then the other thing that was kind of happening at the same time is my parents. So my dad was remarried also my senior year of high school to a wonderful woman, my stepmother. I call her my mom. At this point, she's been an incredible support and a cheerleader for me in my life. But they were living in Fort Lauderdale, working 80 hours a week in an environment that they were getting older and just really wanted a slower pace of life. Nanette, my stepmother's dad, was living on Lake Kiowee in his retirement community, and he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's. And they were looking to get out of Fort Lauderdale. And her father said, hey, their dream had always been to run a breakfast and lunch place. Their retirement plan, that's what it was. He said, hey, this little breakfast place is for sale in Salem, South Carolina. You should come take a look at it. And they came up and saw Sister's Restaurant in Salem, South Carolina, and it all seemed perfect because I was here and Chuck was here, Nanette's father, and they had 4 girls. I have 2 stepsisters now, and a stepbrother, so there's 5 kids, and there's 4 sisters, and they were like, this is kismet, this is meant to be. So they bought Sister's Restaurant in Salem, South Carolina. That was about 7 years ago, and we've been here for 13. So I had been here several years without them. They bought that, and I have never worked in a restaurant. I put myself through school working odds and ends jobs, never part of a restaurant industry. All of my sisters worked in restaurants. I never did, even though I'm the cook of the family. It's wild. And so I started going up to Sisters and helping here and there, you know, be a waitress. And when, you know, my mom didn't have somebody to cover a shift, and I'd go up and help, and loved it, and started kind of dabbling in the kitchen. And I would have these visions at my farm of like, let's do these farm to table dinners on my farm. And I mean, I was kind of already doing them for friends. We would come over and, you know, have these harvest dinners of elaborate proportions and making pies and, you know, all sorts of stuff that I was doing on the farm. But my mom, who has a long history in food and beverage, was kind of like, you can't really do that. You can't really just like sell tickets on a farm without a kitchen that's been DHEC inspected. She was very wary of that and kind of like, Amanda, you know, and then she looked at me and she's like, why don't you host them at the restaurant? And I was like, I've never worked. I wouldn't know how to do that. And she's like, let's do it. And it was right after COVID, our first farm to table dinner. And I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never cooked in a restaurant setting like that. And we put out a menu, and I was like, I think I can do this. And we put out a menu, and people made reservations, and I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. And after that first dinner, I was 100% hooked. I will never forget that first dinner. There was a man who came to eat by himself. He made a reservation for one. A man who came to eat. My mom was like, Amanda, you have to come out and talk to people. And I was like, why? She's like, just come greet them. And I was like, no. Anyway, she's like, this guy wants to talk to the chef. So she made me come out, and he shook my hand and he said, I've never had a better dinner. I travel all over the world and eat food. I don't know what you did or why it was so good. I've never had a better plate of food in front of me. And I looked at him and I was like, I don't know what you did.
Oh my God.
And the second dinner I did, there was this woman who works in food and beverage all over the world as well. And she's like, my parents drugged me here. I didn't know what I was doing coming to Salem, South Carolina to a kitchen. She made me sign her napkin and put it on a wall with Emerald Lagasse, because she said, I've never been so inspired by the food. She was like, it's going on my wall. Thank you for signing this napkin. And I was like, I don't know what to say to you. Like I am not a formally trained chef. The only reason the food is what it is not because of the way I cook it. It's because of the way I source it. It's because of the farmers who spend hours, countless hours in the fields and with their hands cultivating this food. That is what they are tasting. It's not anything special that I'm doing. They are tasting the love from the beginning of the cultivation to the end. That is what is happening, is a reawakening of this is what food is supposed to taste like. It's not supposed to taste like it's been buried in seed oils and covered up, whatever it is in a restaurant to make it taste good. It's supposed to taste like it came out of the field, and that's all that's really happening, is that it's a reawakening of this is the food that we're supposed to be eating.
I can't tell you what an immersive experience it is in eating the way the body is meant to eat. It's meant to eat food that's grown where you live, not food that's been shipped across, from some tropical country to here. I mean, it doesn't digest that well. So, I am so high on your farm to table and just the way, and the farmers come. Some of them come and they're sitting at the tables and we get to introduce them. And we have found our beef supplier for ourselves and for our raw fed dogs through your farmers. And I mean, the meat is, you cannot eat meat in a restaurant anymore after you've tasted this. It is, as you said, it's loved. I mean, these cattle, they're loved. They're not just stock, to be just used as food. They're loved. And so, oh my God, we're not worthy. I am so grateful to you for that. I seriously, I'm so grateful. Thank you. Don't ever stop.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I have found that niche. And, again, I think when there are those moments of like, what is it that you're doing? And I'm like, I am not doing anything. You are experiencing, it is not a taste. You're experiencing an emotion, being connected to the food. I am literally a vessel that is providing it for you, but
You're the wizard.
very much. I mean, yes, there are certain things that I do, like pairing flavors together that you might not think of, but those flavors only exist because of the work of farmers.
So what is the most unusual pairing that you have put together, or several unusual that stand out in your mind in your farm to table dinners?
But it was a few springs ago, and it was something that I had done before. And it was the concept of making a lemon meringue pie without a single lemon. And I I did. I don't know if you were at this dinner, if you remember this dinner, but I served it was a cake that, a lemon meringue cake that I did. And I made the lemon curd and the lemon piece of it 100% from whey, which is the byproduct of making cheese. And it's pungent and has that tangy flavor. Nobody knew there weren't lemons in that cake. It wasn't a single lemon, but it tasted just like lemon meringue.
That was one of the best desserts I've ever tasted.
Yes. And I did the little meringue mushrooms with it, and the parsley cake. It looked like little forest floors. It was beautiful. But that was I like doing that, and I as you know, one of the things I think that people come expecting is a very unique savory presentation to a lot of desserts. So you will always find a mix of sweet and savory. I'm not a big sweets person, and so I really enjoy the play on sweet and savory. One of the recipes that people continually ask me for is my honey and tahini pie. I'm not sure.
Oh, so good. Oh my God.
Every time I serve it, people are like, what is in this?
Do you have any extra of those that we can take home with us?
That will be in the cookbook for sure.
Oh, good.
Yeah, that tahini honey pie is otherworldly. And so I really enjoy the play on sweet and savory. The dessert that I'm working on for this next fall farm to table is probably like a purple sweet potato creme brulee. I'm still kind of playing around with it. And so nothing is overly sweet. It's using the sweetness of the earth and what's coming from it, and honey, because it's local.
Yes.
And so how can we recreate America's favorite desserts using local ingredients and the sweetness from the earth? And so I really enjoy that. I feel like I make a lot of desserts.
Fantastic. I remember you made something unique out of sourdough bread, and I can't remember what it was, but it wasn't bread.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I replaced all of the water in sourdough bread with carrot juice. And it was the carrot bread. Is that what you're remembering?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Oh my God.
I do a lot of sourdough. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, so Amanda, you are amazing. If somebody wanted to do what you do in any part of this country, they wanted to go back and start not farm to table dinners, but basically get back to the earth and grow their own food. I mean, do you have any advice for people that want to feed themselves rather than store-bought food?
We were an animal welfare approved farm for many, many years. And one of the really unique things that we did is that we were an animal welfare approved slaughter site for poultry. And so, we, have a specific protocol that we've been trained based off of science and evidence and research, that reduces the strife at the end of the life of an animal. And so we've taught many families about that protocol and how to do it and offer that. We don't do it quite as much anymore. Our lives are busy with now a teenager of our own, and have taken a step back from that intense. We were doing chicken processing for 5 times a year. And so we've taken a step back from that, really just providing our family with chicken and farm to table dinners with chicken. But yeah, the knowledge acquired is really not something I'm interested in packaging up, but I'm very passionate about sharing it in ways that families can access. And so if there's ever families that are looking for that kind of knowledge, I'm here for it.
How altruistic. Thank you.
Yeah.
What are the 3 things that you would most like to accomplish in the next year?
I want to write a cookbook. That is for sure. I have started writing it, and I am not a writer, so it is a challenge for me. In the next year, I'm very passionate about being a source of constant love and nurture and mothering for my children. They're on the precipice of becoming their own human beings, and I'm here for it. My daughter is 13 and my son is 9. And they are walking out into the world as their own individual selves these days. And so that takes a lot of emotional energy on my end these days. And I think too, when a lot of people, as somebody who is so involved in politics and the world in that way for many years, working in nonprofits and around social justice issues. Again, the biggest lesson I have been taught through experience is if you want to change the world you live in, plant a garden and raise your kids in the way that you see the world should look like. And so that's what I'm doing. I am planting a garden and raising animals as an act of resistance. I am nurturing and loving 2 human beings to stand out in a world that wants them to fit into a mold. They will not fit into that mold. And so I think that those 2 things are the biggest way in which I am politically and environmentally active these days. And it's very interesting because I'm not an outspoken voice and I don't share my views on who's running an office or what I think about this bill or law. I'm quietly putting my head down and doing work. I'm raising kids with love and kindness and to be healthy, productive, active citizens. And I think that we need more of that.
That is so inspiring. Thank you so much. I mean, you to me are an amazing person. You're a mover and shaker, and our Coney County is so blessed to have you, and I only wish that we could clone you and drop you into every county in this country. And thank you so much for your time today. I know you are busy as hell, and I so appreciate this gift that you're giving us and giving the world today. Thank you.
Laine, thank you for creating this space to highlight stories that often are untold. Creating the space to have these conversations in such a meaningful and loving way. You two are a mover and shaker, and I'm just incredibly proud to be a friend of yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Have the best rest of your day.